You commented on a really good point about in my last little episode with Marco about BJJ
Yes.
and sport BJJ in crowds and Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu in crowds, and there's a difference, and that was weird to me. Please unpackage that.
Well, I'll be honest with you. There's a lot of things that I would do in a crowd that I would never do in a tournament ever. You know what I mean? And vice versa. I would never ever. There's a lot of stuff that I would do in a tournament that I would never even dream about doing in a crowd.
All right.
Right? So, and that and you know, I had some other comments um about like it's not just like what's in your hands. It's like how you could mentally absorb what you've learned and how to apply it. That's a very important thing. I mean, we were raised under very strict conditions, and I don't believe that they were very strict. I mean, I find that they did wonders for us. They helped improve our game like miles above what a lot of other people were doing, even sportive, where I felt like, you know, because I was that person, I was always like, yeah, I just want to compete, I want to go, I want to go. I said, listen, I'm going to give you a base that you can't break.
Mm-hmm.
All right, and so I wasn't just taught a technique. I was taught the theory.
Right. Right.
So after being taught the theory, the technique becomes easy, and to expand the technique becomes easy. So it's like if you just taught a technique, you don't know nothing about it, you don't have the history behind it, you don't have anything to really base it off of, then you're only left with that in your hands,
Mm-hmm.
and there's nothing. There's no foundation to it, right? So it's like that's all you get to sort of use. You don't get to use everything about it. You know what I mean? Like, why does this work? Not just, oh, it works. Okay, I'm going to use it. No, I want to know why it works. Or not even to say I want to know. I was taught, no, I'm going to tell you why it's going to work, and then you'll be able to work it wherever you want to work it now, right? So
There's a lot of
I
improvisation
find
that
that,
can happen there from at that point, right? You teach the principles, the theories, and you can take that everywhere.
yes, yeah, absolutely. It's all, if you can pick up the principles and the theories, then to even, and I won't say like make up your own stuff, but you're right. It's like to improvise. Nothing's ever going to be 100%, right? Even that statement, right? Nothing's ever going to be exactly how you want it every time you want it like that. So what you have to do is be able to improvise, you know, and you know, some of your opponents can be smaller, you know, bigger, stronger, slower, like more, you know, more flexible or whatever, and you just have to be able to deal with that and overcome those
It's the
situations.
beauty of the art. Where do you find any modifications to make that work for like that 250-pound guy versus the 135-pound guy?
Absolutely. Absolutely. A lot of people turn around and say, man, that guy's huge. What am I going to do? Sometimes I think because of the theories of how we were taught and how we were raised, it sort of taught us like it's easier for me. It was, I don't want to say easy. I think it was physically easier to work. Because I mean, when we came up in jiu-jitsu, it was like, this is made to beat the bigger opponent, the sharper guy, the smarter guy, the stronger guy. But now you have everything that you need to work. And now there you are. You know what I mean? There you are. It's like, so it should work. Theoretically, everything like that should work for you.
Who was teaching you, and who were you talking about by we?
What do you mean? By who were we training with?
Yeah,
Like my training partners and stuff.
yeah,
Oh, there was a lot of us. I mean, back in the day. I mean, a lot of the people who came from the original like Franco Bearing team.
yeah.
So
So
I mean, from like the early to like late, I would say late '90s to like the early 2000s,
mhm.
or not. Oh, I say early 2000s. No, that's. I mean, we were around for a long time, a lot longer than that. So a lot of people started just like spreading out, opening up their own schools, started having like different goals at different times. So I think that's, you know, some people wanted to compete more, some people wanted to open their gyms. How are the flies in Sudbury? You know what? Right now, I actually don't know. I'm actually in Toronto, but I'm on my way home soon. Okay.
What are you doing?
Yeah. Hey, listen, don't worry about it. Don't worry. Yeah, don't ask questions you don't want answers to.
Okay. Okay.
No. I'm here for my children. I actually came here to pick up my children. They want to come hang out for a bit. So I was like, yeah, absolutely.
Oh, why not? You got some good time and enjoy the city while you're at it. Oh, it's good.
Well, let's hopefully the city stays the city for a little bit. Know what I mean? If there's supposed to be some, you know, things going on tomorrow, and hopefully everything turns out for the best and for the better. I definitely don't want to see like the results that we're getting in the States and stuff like that. So I'm trying to get in an angle where it doesn't keep going dark on me here.
Fair enough.
Okay.
Like, okay, for sport jiu-jitsu, let's just say like a arbitrary game plan, whether you do it or not. You pull guard, you pull delete, like get the sweep, get on top, gauge points, you win the match, right? You're not going to do that in a crowd situation.
Sure. No, because you know what? A lot of times you like people say, oh, you're going to wait for the ref to save you. And I heard yourself and Professor Marco speaking earlier is like, yeah, you know, So actually, no, you guys want to speak about it's, two other people I was talking to earlier today were talking about this. It's like the better fighter doesn't always no, the better fighter doesn't always win, but the better competitor will.
This is okay. I can totally get on board.
Right? Listen, if you understand how to play the game better, you will win. So if you want to talk to me about sport jiu-jitsu, 100%, we can definitely talk about that. We can get into that a little bit. If you want to talk about like, listen, what's going to work today on outside of the competitive realm, and I don't want to turn around and say out on the street because you could be anywhere. You could be at home, and you have like a family member who's intoxicated and they're just carrying on a little bit, and you're not in a street fight. You don't want to hurt anybody, but you need to actually control. Yeah, well, you don't want to break their arm. Know what I mean? You don't want to strangle them unconscious. You don't want to do anything like this. But what you do want to do is like de-escalate the situation, which is very, very important, because you don't ever want to escalate a violent situation, right? For whatever reason, you don't ever, and maybe competitively you will. Know what I mean? If I'm trying to push my opponent's gas, yeah, I'll escalate it. Know what I mean? I'm going to see what I'm looking for. That's a little bit different. Maybe. But on the other, when it becomes, and I don't want to say competition isn't realistic, because it's very realistic. If that's part of your life, that's part of your life. It's very realistic. But if it's if it's an uncontrolled environment, we'll call it that for now, right?
Yeah.
If it's not, because the competition is a controlled environment. If it's not and you're trying to control the environment, that's very, very different, right? Like I don't want to, I don't want to, break my uncle's arm because he's throwing dishes and he's mad at something. Know what I mean? No, know what I mean? So you want to do, calm him down, and you know what? It doesn't always take a physical altercation. You don't. I tried to state something earlier, and it was on the last show or last IG live you just did,
Yeah.
and it was like jiu-jitsu's not in your hands. Jiu-jitsu's in your heart. It's in your mind. Okay. So it's like it's how you can like articulate yourself. It's how you can express yourself. You don't always need to have your hands on somebody. You don't always need to be jumping on somebody's head. I mean, you know what? It took me a long time I was taught that right away. It took me a long time to learn that. I mean, it took me a very, very long time to learn that. And that has definitely has direct issues with what's going on today in the world. I mean, we don't always have to escalate the situation. I mean, it's a terrible thing.
Once the training is there, you don't need to prove that to yourself, right? You can bring that down immediately. It's not, the techniques are not just physical. It can be through not just
psychological. Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So
you could speak to somebody and calm them down very easily. You know what I mean? You don't have to turn around and say, you better calm down or I'll kick your ass. It doesn't matter if you can or not. That's not the problem. If I have a baseball bat and I'm like, you know what? I'll wreck your head. You know what I mean? I'd be like, listen, the baseball bat's not here to wreck you. I mean, the baseball bat's to make sure that I don't get wrecked. You know what I mean?
Right.
But don't worry about that. Listen, that's not what that, don't pay attention to the bat. I just want to have a conversation with you. Is everything okay? Can we walk away from this situation? You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. If it can't be solved, I mean, and a lot of people say violence isn't the answer. No, it's not always the answer, but sometimes it's a solution. I initially wanted to sort of speak about is actually is jiu-jitsu in schools and for law enforcement, which becomes obviously like another thing. I know there's a lot of countries where they teach martial arts in the school systems because of it's just part of their history, it's part of the culture, it's part of everything. You know what I mean? Like there was a time where, there was a few years ago, I say a few years, it was a long time ago actually. In the 90s, I was in an Asian country and we went to a high school to go train. And I was like, oh, maybe just because it has the facilities. No, they have teams. They have full teams there. And I was like, oh, well, that's nice. You know what I mean? I was like, and they're like, no, every school is like this. Some schools are better than others. Some schools are just like, it's like there's a track team at some schools. Some teams have all schools have like track teams and soccer teams and football teams and stuff.
Totally.
Yeah, they have, hockey teams. They have everything, right? But, where are you going to go to? You're going to go to the one that has like the better team, right? It depends on if that's what you're, if that's what you're really into, right? But again, that's sort of what it was like here. We don't have that. This is an issue when it comes to law enforcement, and it is an issue when it comes to schooling. Because now, if you're in school, and we have it's just man, I hate to say it, and it's definitely like not a good term by any means, but they call it pussification. You know what I mean? Where they're just like they're trying to soften everything up. And again, I'm not telling everybody that you have to be like this, like cowboy. You got to come out, like just like trying to smash everybody's face. But man, it's phys ed, and if you don't have to do phys ed, you know what I mean? Then what? You know what I mean? Like there has to be phys ed has to be a thing. If people do phys ed, they're like, well, I want a note for this and I want a note for that, so you're exempt from this now. But can I get exempt from like a mathematics class? Can I get a note that exempts me from learning how to read and write? Can I get it's very, very important. You know what I mean? I was speaking to somebody the other day about swimming, and swimming's just as important. You know what I mean? Like, listen, imagine if you were born with wings, but you didn't know how to fly.
That would suck.
I mean, that's what it's like not knowing how to swim. I mean, my whole life, I don't remember a time where I didn't know how to swim.
Yeah.
I mean, I've been in like waters where you're supposed to be very, very uncomfortable, and I was like, okay, just take your time. You know what I mean, as long as something doesn't come up and grab me and eat me right away, I should be okay. Everything else, if I'm just fighting the water here, then I should stop fighting because I should be okay.
It wasn't.
You can calm down.
It wasn't a phobia per se for me, but I had a lot of trouble with swimming lessons, and to the point where I hated it. But it's really come on like. It was a very big part of my life later on. It was, and I love it now.
Well, so hold on, you had a problem with the lessons itself?
Honestly, it's full-blown phobia. The point is, I hated it, and I didn't think it was necessary until a decade later. It's probably one of the most important skills that you should have as a basis, right?
Yeah, absolutely,
yeah.
Absolutely. In elementary school, I remember there was half a year in one of our years where we went swimming, and I was like. Wow, I guess I'll show up to this every day because I already knew how to swim. It was fun. It was whatever. But I think martial arts should be like that. Mm-hmm. All right? Because one, it's an art, and two, it's martial. You should know how to at least physically be able to defend yourself or be confident enough that you're not scared to go everywhere you want to be. You know what I mean? And smart enough to know.
100%.
Yeah, exactly. Every time I see a number, I don't want to be nervous. Every time I see letters on the wall, I don't want to be nervous. I don't be like, I don't know what that means, or I can't add that, or I can't subtract that. Every time I see people speaking, I don't want to be like, well, I can't speak. It should be a basic thing. But again, the big thing here, and what I sort of almost touched on a second ago, is liability now. You know what I mean? Liabilities. People are getting liabilities. So are you so at the police colleges, are you allowed to learn some jiu-jitsu? Absolutely. 100%. You're allowed to do whatever you want. If you want to further your career or your safety measures, like sometimes you're like, I'm out on the street every day, so maybe I want to know how to take care of it. We have guys who train with us and guys I've trained with for years and years. They just walked in the gym. They're just like, man, I want something that I can feel confident enough or comfortable enough where I'm not scared if I'm circled by somebody or, somebody's a little bit aggressive. It's okay. Let's just chill out. Let's just take care of that. Right? So I know, to know how to de-escalate a situation, you know what I mean? Instead of like, make a bad situation worse. I know people who just master that. They master in making, I'm telling you, they make a bad situation worse. And I don't know if they do it intentionally or they just have a knack for making problems bigger problems.
Right.
You know what I mean? And if you're looking, listen, I was talking to a really good friend of mine. And he said something to me one time. And it really resonated with me. It stuck with me forever. You know what I mean? And it honestly will. So, he turned around and he said to me, he goes, you know what? You know how I deal with my children in my house? And I turned around and I said, well, what's that? And he says, listen, I had my son got into like a big problem and it was this. So we never looked at it like a problem. All right. He said, we don't go looking for problems. We only go looking for solutions. So to address a problem, to make a problem worse, it's always going to make it worse. You know what I mean? So by not addressing the problem, only addressing the solution. What happened? We already know what the problem is, or else it wouldn't be a problem. Right? So if you know what the problem is, address avenues for solutions. All right? Oh, well, this is the problem. Okay, we can keep whining about the problem all day. It's not going to fix it. All right? You can do the right thing, you could do the wrong thing, or you could do nothing. If you do nothing, it's going to stay the same. If you do the wrong thing and you fail, try something else. Right? So always do something. You know what I mean? You're going to find the right way. If you do the right way the first time, bless, you got it, man. You're up. All right?
Yeah.
So I heard those two statements, right? We don't look for problems, we look for solutions. And That's from one person, all right? So I got to credit them, and man, they're hyper intelligent, and somebody completely different had turned around and said you could do the right thing, the wrong thing, or you could do nothing, all right? Hyper intelligent, man. That's how I say, put yourself around good people, and you're only going to come away with good things, right?
So I don't want to get overtly political per se.
Okay.
However,
yeah, I don't want to express my opinions, because I mean, I definitely have them. Know what I mean? I'm a human being, right?
I don't want to be held responsible for anything I say on my own show. No.
That's another thing. This what goes up will stay up there forever too, right?
Well, at the same time, I am. This is a genuine question, I guess. I was same question for Marco, more or less. But so in that case, what do you think a good solution for law enforcement training would be? How would you implement like jujitsu?
If I grab you and you move the wrong way and I twist my finger and I'm off for 6 months and that's on the government's dime, obviously we can't put jujitsu in.
Yeah.
I mean, so whose responsibility is it?
Yeah.
Right. That's a big thing, man. And that's why you can't teach. That's why when Jason said we're using stuff from 1979, yeah, 100%. Know what I mean? Because they have to keep it, they have to keep it very, very basic. I mean, they have to keep it very, very basic. They'd be like, well, man, the stuff that they were telling me that they were teaching in DT, I was like, why would you even do something? And they're like, oh, push like a pressure point. It could probably gonna hurt your finger more than that. But I mean,
DT.
No, DT. Sorry, defensive tactics. That's what they're teaching in law enforcement, right? The defensive tactics, and they teach you a lot of very, very valuable things. But at the same time, a lot of it's very, very old. It's very like, man, imagine if I gave you like a brand new car from like, you know, the 60s or something like that, and you're like, oh, this is nice, and you can't even keep up on our regular highways today.
Yeah, fair.
I mean, you're sort of stuck.
It's like I can roll down my window. Oh, cool. Like.
Yeah, exactly. Listen, it's not a bad car, right? It gets you from where you need to be, but it's not efficient for what you need today. It's you know, you're probably using leaded gas. You're probably you know what I mean. But things have to improve. You know what I mean? Like you probably only have like one mirror. I don't know what I mean. You get that a lot too, right? You didn't have the passenger side mirror back in the day. You only had the one side.
So you're saying all this stuff is like it's like similar to like I don't know teaching like a really old school way of doing like a kimura from closed guard or something like stuff that wouldn't work on a modern circuit or like it doesn't have to be a circuit.
No, listen, no, that's very, very valuable, but on an uncontrolled environment. In a controlled environment, it's very different. Yeah. Right? I mean, so I'm not gonna lie. If you try that on me, I'm passing your guard. I'm probably going to your back, and you're gonna find your gi wrapped around your neck. You know what I mean? But if you're trying to do that to somebody who's trying to hit you in the head with a bottle, you're gonna be probably a lot better off than you think. You know what I mean? Would I go for like a shallow De La Hiva hook, and then at the same time look for like
or something, and then like try to.
Yeah, no, definitely not. Listen, you know what, man? Listen, the weight that comes from a punch from somebody standing over you, right? Even from a small opponent. Listen, if you were fighting somebody who's 100 pounds, would you think that person's big or small?
I would think they're small.
Right.
In terms of fighting.
Technically, right? Okay. So if I turn around and said I'm going to drop 100-pound weight in your face, what are you going to think now?
Why would you do that, bro? That's not cool.
Well, no, but at the same time, that 100 pounds of that little person, you know what? That's okay. I'm just going to bolo this guy because he's 100 pounds, no problem. But he's going to hit you and put 100 pounds in your face every time, right? So if that even rocks you once, yeah. So again, I'm not saying that a bolo is not valuable. It's extremely valuable, right? Extremely valuable on the circuit, right? Or let's say a controlled environment. But in an uncontrolled environment, it's not very. It doesn't hold its same value. You know what I mean? But again, like we referred to earlier, what's that? You know that kimura from closed guard, right? It's not, like, I'm gonna go to your back. I'm gonna do some things to you. Know what I mean? But in an uncontrolled environment, I find that's going to be a lot more effective.
Well, I'm glad you opened up this conversation point because it brings up the distinction that I had a conversation with actually Sean from Sean Douglas Leo. The difference between jiu-jitsu for someone that doesn't do jiu-jitsu and doing jiu-jitsu with someone that does jiu-jitsu. It's two very different things.
Yes, 100%.
Right?
100%.
All of a sudden, that closed guard kimura, that basic technique that like everyone kind of rolls their eyes at, it's actually it's still incredibly effective.
You ever tried to bolo somebody who's a white belt who's only trained for 2 days?
It's probably not impossible.
Damn near impossible. It's damn near impossible because they're not doing the right things defensively. They're not right. They're not wrong. You know what I mean? But They're just doing what they can.
we're looking for a very specific
Yeah,
set of reactions. Yeah, totally. I agree with that.
exactly, right? But I tell you what, if you keep their arms together, right, and you just step past their guard, they're going to be lost, right? You're
Yeah.
going to mount them very easily. They won't be able to escape. You're going to be able to. They'll give you their back 9 times out of 10, right? So it's again, it's all environmental, right? It's all environmental. It's where you're going to use it, when you're going to use it. But sorry, I'm digressing again. I'm the whole thing about teaching jujitsu in schools
Yeah.
and to law enforcement, it becomes this like the society that we've built and the one we live in right now is like we're too easy to say no, we don't want to, or we can't. You know what I mean? I believe we've victimized ourselves. And you know what? When you're born, you could be one of two people. You could be the warrior or the victim, and I've refused to be a victim. You know what I mean? So I'm not saying I'm a warrior, but at the same time, I know what direction I want to move into. You know what I mean? So I'm not going to be somebody else's victim, right? If somebody does something to me, I'm going to be like, oh, they did this or they did that. It's like, what did I do wrong, and how can I improve on that and not let it happen again, right? So, you know, you gotta, you know, like, you have to make those decisions sort of like for yourself. You know what I mean? So for law enforcement and for schooling, so if you're in school, it's going to be an extracurricular activity. And that's what you see a lot, right? You see parents turning around and they're like, you know what? I want my child to do this. And you see, like, I think a lot of people do it in a negative way. They're like, oh, I love the UFC. I want to make my child the UFC fighter that I wasn't. I've seen that a few times.
I'm already cringing hearing that, man. Yeah, totally.
Yeah, I've seen it more than a few times, know what I mean? And again, I find the children are just like, nah, I just sort of want to chill out. I don't want to be a UFC fighter. I'm like, I'm not going to turn you into a UFC fighter. I'm going to teach you how to stand up. I'm going to teach you how to break fall. I'm going to teach you how to this. But you know what? You'll find the small percentage of children who are very, very, like, highly active, very, very competitive, and they want to go a little bit further, and then you give them that. You know what I mean? But you have to, again, give them basics, give them self-defense, give them their break falls, give them, the basics, basically, be safe, protect yourself, go to a safe position, you know what I mean? And you know what? A safe position isn't like what people are calling their safe space anymore. My safe space, you know where that is?
No.
It's on your back.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? That's where I'm safest, not you on my back. Know what I mean? I'm not going to turn and cover my eyes and turn my back because I don't want to see you and pretend you don't exist. That's not a safe place. That's probably the most dangerous place to be, because now you get to do whatever you want. And I'm not just talking about jiu-jitsu. I'm talking about in all of life. You can't run from things that you don't want to face. Know what I mean? It's better you face them and get on their backs. Know what I mean? Like, you know what? Like you were saying before, swimming was a very, very problematic for you when you were growing up. You know what I mean? It became like almost traumatic, you were saying. But can you swim?
I can. Yeah, I love it. I'll jump into open water.
Oh yeah.
It's
But you're comfortable in the water.
Wow.
Let's put it this way. Let me ask you. Do you feel unsafe around water?
Oh God, no.
Okay. Well, that's all you needed to do was jump on that. Jump on your problem's back and instead of letting your problem be on your back. Right, you got to find the place where you need to be. So you need to face those. I don't want to be that guy. I don't want to sound like sort of cliche and be like face your fears. Know what I mean? Don't face your fears. Know what I mean? And don't like live with your fears. Conquer them. Know what I mean?
Like I'm smiling.
Right? I'm
smiling like because it is a little cliche, but it's so true though, right? Like.
It's hard to live with. It's hard to say. It's hard to believe in sometimes. Know what I mean? But like, and you know what? It's hard to change a life that you're sort of used to or you're accustomed to at the same time, right?
Yeah, it's like you kind of get like that's a scary thing. If you never grow out of it, it just kind of locks you. You lock in without realizing. And to change these mental frameworks that you've already built up over the years and decades, it's like to break out of that.
Yeah.
I think if we're kind of dialing on like why jiu-jitsu changes people's lives, it's like I think that's kind of. It's a method of breaking out those frameworks.
I've seen the fear in some people's eyes from being mounted.
Yeah.
I've seen the fear in some people's faces, and I've seen them sort of like take a deep breath and have to reevaluate their whole sort of like well-being or life after they've been, after you put your hand in somebody's collar. And I don't want to say like, you choke the hell out of them. No, I strangle somebody and they didn't tap with one hand. They tapped with two hands, and their eyes went. And I was like, "Wait, you okay? You okay?" They're like, "Yeah." And I turned around, and I was like, they were just like this from having a panic attack. And I was like, "Hey, listen, if you ever feel unsafe about anything, just tap. Just let them know, and and we can work around it. And to understand what's actually happening is more important than how. If you understand what's happening, your reaction will change. Right, your reaction will change tenfold.
Well, to bring this back to school.
So again, the next time you get mounted, the next time you get choked, you're like, oh, okay, I have to work on this, or I have to work them off my back. You know what I mean?
You learn the priorities.
It'll change your life.
Yeah.
Yeah. 100%. Yeah. Your priorities change. Your priorities change. You don't panic anymore because it's not the first time. I mean, like how many times you've even mounted and just sort of laughed about it, went like, ah, know what I mean? Like, I can't believe I just let them pass, and you just like start escaping. Know what I mean? Like, you don't really think much of it. Know what I mean? You're just like, or, you know, somebody's got a really strong mount, a really strong pass, and you know, they catch you, like, okay, I have to work to get out of this. I have to really, really work, and sometimes you're put in a worse position, but sometimes you give a worse to get a better, you know what I mean? You have to work in this way. But I believe a lot of times, the panic thing, you can beat, you can conquer, right? Because when a lot of people aren't accustomed to it or they're not used to it, they can change a little bit. They can, you know, with training, you can get to it. But then you get on the other end of the spectrum. What changes now, all right, is ego. Ego is a massive, massive thing. You seen stars? Listen. Yeah, listen, we've all been choked. We've all seen stars, man. I don't even know how many times I've been put to sleep with chokes. But it's not because of ego. It's because I've been actively trying to defend it. And I'm like, you know what? I can get out of this. I'm okay. I'm moving. All of a sudden it was, you know what? Time ran out. Time ran out before I escaped, and, you know, you go to sleep. And if, you know, maybe I thought I could go a little bit further than I was, but I was just like, oh, yeah. But it's happened, man. Again, like I said, I don't even know how many times I've been put to sleep. It's probably not a good idea. There's probably something going wrong there, you know what I mean? But I think, and maybe this is going to change somewhere in the future, I think it's better than getting concussed, at least at this point, right?
I think there's some studies about like how it does harden your arteries and there's some issues, but if I want to choose between getting choked out and getting concussed, I'm probably choosing the choke, right? I do want to bring up like just in regards to like the fear of the unknown, right? People have these panic. It's very easy for us because we've been doing this for like, it's you especially, but we're used to being mounted or being at bad spots.
We're accustomed to it. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But on a daily level for like hours at a time, you know what I mean?
Exactly.
Because at this point it's my job, right? Like this is what I do, like day in and day out. I just like teach and roll and try to stay healthy, right?
But to bring this back to school, it's like if you taught that from like, I know so many people are still scared of this, but it's like it's not taught. Yeah. No one's ever exposed to it.
Yeah, if you're not exposed to it, then what are you going to do, right? You're going to panic when when everything's left in your hands and you're an adult and you're going to be like, oh, I've never been taught how to cope. And that's a big thing, man. When you're not being taught how to cope, I think the children who are learning how to cope and work in a team environment, right? When you start stuff like that, like, remember, this is like an individual sport, but we can't do it alone.
No.
Right? Because without you, I'm not here. Without me, you're not here. Right? This is how we live. Right? Like, I can't roll with myself. Although, like we were talking about Brandon earlier, I've seen him roll by himself more than a few times. He's just warming up and doing stuff. But yeah, I've seen people. Yeah, you can drill by yourself. You can do stuff. But again, like we can't excel without each other. Mm-hmm. Right? So I mean, if we need to cope with a problem and we've never been taught how to cope, and we've always been taught, well, you don't have to do this, you don't have to that, you can do whatever you want. You can, because in life you can't do whatever you want. You know what I mean? As we're speaking right now, we live in a a free environment or a free country. I don't know. Especially while we're in the lockdown. Exactly, we're not really free.
I know what you're saying, but I understand.
Yeah, but as it is, like, why wouldn't we want to be able to like walk out? You know what I mean? Why wouldn't we want to be able to like free ourselves of our own like problems? But when we're told like, well, you don't have to do this and you don't have to do that, but man, you don't have to, but look what you're going to be left with. And look what our society is left with right now. You know what I mean? People victimizing themselves, people complaining about themselves, people asking and like always having somebody else do something for you. You know what I mean? Like I've posed this question before, like I think it was last week or the week before, like before the virus, before COVID, whose responsibility was your safety and security?
My personally speaking myself, that's on.
Yeah, right. But so your family and your safety and security was whose responsibility was yours, right? But now this is all happening, right? Now whose responsibility is it?
So I would say it's still mine. Like I'm not nothing.
Is it? Is it?
Oh, well, I mean, it's everyone else's. Like, no, for sorry,
Yeah,
for
no,
COVID, yeah, it's
exactly.
yeah.
It's not. Yeah, it's not your responsibility anymore. Nobody's letting you take care of your own self. So it's again like that's sort of what we're at.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Right. So I think it is. I think we should be responsible for ourselves. We should be responsible for our safety, our security, our family safety and security. Listen, if there's a problem that like my family's having, they can't be exposed to anything. They've got they've got questionable health. That's my responsibility to keep them safe, right? And make sure they're getting the stuff they need. You know what I mean? And if I can't, or my brother or sister can't help or whatever, then we make something. Then we put something in place so they can be helped, right? We don't just like assume that let's make everybody else do it for us. You know what I mean? As a son, as a daughter, as a father, as a mother, as a brother or sister, that is your responsibility. You know what I mean, as a friend or an in-law or a husband, or it is your responsibility. I mean, as a human being, it's your responsibility. But to turn around and tell somebody else, you know what, that's not my responsibility for you take care of me. That's not
It's weak, man.
viable.
I don't like
Yeah.
hearing that. It's weak.
Yeah,
It's putting
it is. It
stress,
is weak.
strain.
But we're taught this. But we have to take that responsibility back since we're children. All right. And I'm not saying like, we have to teach martial arts in school. We have to teach martial arts for law enforcement. I think for law enforcement, absolutely, especially if you're being put in that position. All right. I think 100%. I think you should be. It should be like some kind of course, and not like, oh well, we were going to teach, but people keep getting hurt,
Yeah.
and then man, listen, dude. Listen. I've seen what they have to. Yeah, exactly, Mike. Man, listen. I've seen what they've had to carry, and man, I've seen everybody with like a bad back because of the way their belt sits on the hip and the way they have to sit in the car for hours at a time. And I'm sure that's way more dangerous than learning specific tactics.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Like, I think we've been allowed to cry too much. You know what I mean? I think we've been allowed to like to victimize ourselves too much, and I think like that's a big situation. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, you've tackled this problem in a really interesting way. You've come a very pragmatic approach where it's like I don't think it's overhauling the entire system isn't realistic, but at the same time, you can make these things extracurriculars. You can make it a choice. You can give people an option, right? So I think,
oh yeah, but we do have that option. You know what I mean? Like we do. Like if you're in law enforcement. Yeah. They're like, oh, you know what? I honestly think for law enforcement, they should say, oh, if you're going to do that, well, we'll pay for it. You know what I mean? Or we'll pay a percentage of it. Or because I think we need people like that in law enforcement. 100%.
100%.
Right?
Just like don't just make it available. Incentivize it for your force, but at the same time.
Listen.
Yeah.
Just so we get things clear, I'm not picking a side either way, right? Because there's listen, to turn around and say you're picking a side. Listen, I don't sort of follow sides, follow good people, okay? So there's going to be some people part of one organization that are going to be really good, and there are going to be some shitty people that are there too. So it doesn't matter if and talking about the current situation of what's going on right now, and what's going on in the States and everything too, there's obviously there's a lot going on, and to turn around and be like, well, it's all their fault, or no, it's all the other side's fault. No, man, two tango, right? Not just one, two people tango. So if everybody on one side, and listen, there's going to be like bad situations that are going to get out of hand. You know what I mean? But as long as if in your head you're like, ooh, this is a bad situation, is getting out of hand, and it's involving me, all right? I can't sort of involve my ego. I have to involve the benefit of sort of everybody, and be like, maybe I should back off of this. But listen, man, there's events that happen, and I've 100% condone them. You know what I mean? Like, okay, so the incident that, if we're going to talk specifically on the incident that happened in Minnesota.
Oh, we're doing it. All right, let's go. Let's do it.
Just really quickly. No, sure. I do honestly think that knowing how to control like a body, all right, especially somebody resisting, could have prevented that very, very easily. Like somebody half of that man's size, all right, could have easily controlled that man. No problem.
Yeah, I know.
I mean,
I know that. I can understand that.
it didn't take, 10 people standing around being like, hey, dude, like he's falling out, man. Like and again, there was a lot of other factors involved. Or, okay, hold on, I'll say this. From what we hear right now, there's a lot of other factors involved. Okay, again, from what we hear right now. Okay, so who knows about the facts? I wasn't there. You weren't there. None of us were there. We can't speak on it. We see a lot of video. Know what I mean? And
I was going to say, yeah.
And but like I'm saying, listen. I don't want to turn around and sort of shout out my political opinions or my personal opinions on what should have happened, could have happened, or didn't happen, and if it was okay or not okay. But there's a lot of way that could have easily been a thing. You got to know that if somebody is bigger, heavier chested, or weighs over a certain amount, and their hands are behind their back, it's going to cause, right, their organs to react in a certain way. So when you're leaning forward and you're on your face, it makes it very difficult to breathe. Okay. So if he is having a heart attack, well, then we have a problem, right? And if I don't recognize it, then we have a problem, right? Mm-hmm. Okay. When you're turned on your face, what's the first thing you usually do when it becomes difficult to breathe?
I would try to get my head to the side and try to get air in, or at least turn over. I'll try to turn over, but
yeah. But how do you do it? How do you do it physically? How do you do it?
I gotta use my hands. I gotta roll over.
You don't have your hands. Your hands are behind your back.
Using my legs at that point, then.
Yeah, so you have to move your knees. You actually start pulling your knees towards your hips. Or you start pulling because you're actually just alleviating the pressure that's already on your body.
Trying to get the turtle from both.
But
yeah, totally.
Yeah,
sure.
Okay. You're trying to get the turtle. Okay, so all right. Theoretically, I put my hooks in on your back. I spread you out. I have your hands tucked in, so you can't use your hands. But you think the first thing you do is you start moving your legs, right?
Yeah. Totally.
But if you're moving your legs, what if you're moving your legs? What are you doing? I'm telling you to stay still. Right? I'm telling you to stay still.
Okay.
And you're like, yes, I want to stay still. But you start tucking your legs because you're trying to get up. But now you're resisting, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So if you resist, all right, I fight you harder. If you don't resist, it becomes very difficult to breathe and have blood go. Yeah. So it's sort of like a catch-22. Even if in your head, even if you're like, okay, man, I better fucking stay still. I better stay still for whatever reason. Know what I mean? We're rolling, and I'm just fucking making fun of you, and I'm telling you to stay still, man. You better fucking stay still, right? And you don't want to, then it becomes a problem, right?
Because it looks like you're just trying to breathe, but when it looks like you're resisting arrest, it's not so.
Yeah, it looks like you're resisting. Right? And again, man, if knowing jiu-jitsu, okay, it looks like you're resisting, all right, and I know you're just trying to turn to your side, I let you turn to your side. Right? Why? Because it's easier for me to put my arm around your neck. So basically, so what I was saying, do I think we should be teaching martial arts in school? Do I think we should be teaching for law enforcement? Yeah, absolutely. I think it would definitely help, you know what I mean? I think it would definitely be a good thing, you know what I mean? But I think we also have to face the facts that some people are gonna complain about it or whine about, oh, I'm not good at it, and they're gonna be bullied. It's not about bullying, you know what I mean? It definitely takes a good teacher, a good qualified professor who can teach something like that, you know what I mean? I wouldn't just put anybody in there. You just can't, well, you know what? I've been training for this long. Listen, we've been training and learning, our craft longer than a lot of doctors have been in their field. So again, are we going to go in there and teach a sportive or competitive? I think you can at a certain thing, but just like everything else, it can come in we could actually, feature this in at grade levels. You know what I mean? If you have your basics, then it's like everything else. You have your first grade, second grade, third grade. But then you can also go into university and college and stuff like that. If you want to make it something else, you want to make it better, you want to go into something better, you can do it extracurricular. But for me, I personally think teaching it in schools and teaching it no, I don't want to say making it mandatory in law enforcement. What I more would be thing is encouraging it a little bit more, you know what I mean? And definitely updating the defensive tactics and things that you're allowed to do and not allowed to do, and explaining a lot of things that happen to a body. I mean, listen, police work is not easy, man. Not easy for anybody. You know what I mean? And when I say that, I say that most sincerely because I think there's a lot of people that do police work that shouldn't do the jobs that they have in police work. If you ask a cop what's his job, he's never going to tell you. You know what I mean? He's going to be like, they'll scratch their heads and be like, oh, I don't know, man. There's so much shit that has to be done. You can't ask a cop what he has to do because he has to be a babysitter, then he has to be a door kicker, then he has to be a shoulder to cry on. And the thing is, a lot of people can't fit that bill. You know what I mean? And there's a lot of people who are not cops that should be. You know what I mean? So, like, I think, listen, there's so many different things. I think there's some in some ways is like, but, we can turn around and say, well, you can work in this you can go into that field of being an officer 100%, you know what I mean? But I wouldn't put you in the car every day, you know what I mean? And there's a lot of people that they absolutely should be in the car every day, you know what I mean? I know people who were that are not anymore, and they 100% should be, you know what I mean? Because they turned around and said, man, I don't want to be in that environment, and it's too political and it's too crazy. I'm like, but you're so down to earth, you should probably be that guy. You know what I mean? And then, again, there are people out there that I'm like, man, dude, you shouldn't be here, man. You know what I mean? Or maybe you just shouldn't have this specific job that you have right now.
The reluctant manager comes to mind. The idea that like some of the best managers are people that actually just don't want to be in upper management, but because part of the reason they're so good at their job is because they can detach themselves from the power trip, the management role, and just see the job for what it's supposed to be.
Listen, let me jump on the other end of the spectrum too and say this. Listen, it's hard to be a civilian too. I mean, it's very difficult to be a civilian, and because you don't know. Sometimes you're getting pulled over. How many times you've been driving beside a cop and be like, oh fuck, don't look. I'm not doing anything wrong.
Yeah.
Maybe I'm going too fast. Maybe I'm pulling up beside a cowboy. You know what I mean? And you're just like, you know what? I'm going to pull you over for no reason whatsoever. And all of a sudden you're like, yeah, but I didn't do anything wrong. You get into the wrong conversation. And again, man, you get into the wrong conversation with the wrong guy on the wrong day. And all of a sudden, it's like, bad things sort of happen. You know what I mean? And again, it's so easy to get classified and put into it's so easy to be stereotyped. Mm-hmm. Know what I mean?
Yep.
My head shaved, I'm wearing a hoodie, I'm driving around Scarborough, pull over.
Dude, this is happening to you?
Know what I mean? Like, why? No, I'm not going to say it has or it hasn't. I'm just going to say it's hard to be a civilian, it's hard to be a cop, it's hard to be whatever. You know what I mean? But again, I told you at the beginning, don't be anybody's victim. All right? Let's turn around and say, what can I do to make this better? What can I do to, and I don't even want to say, what can I do to prove myself? You know what I mean? I don't want to say that either. It's just more like, listen, I'm not going to be somebody, you know what I mean? You could be one or the other, and the choice is yours, man. You know what I mean?
Take control of that. Don't leave that to hands of other people.
Right? Have your say, but you don't have to be a dick about it and start smashing everybody else's things for it. You know what I mean? And listen, if I'm passing your guard and I'm on your side because you can't turn around and whine and cry and decide you're going to jab me in my eye because you can't have it, so I can't either. No, dude, you're not making any solutions. All you're doing is, at that point, you're turning yourself into a victim, and you're not trying to find the solution, right?
And there is a correct solution. Yeah, there is a correct solution in this scenario. No.
There's a right way, the wrong way. There's a right way, the wrong way, and then doing nothing. Don't sit there and do nothing. But if you poke me in my eye and you get punched back in your face, just realize that was the wrong way. You know what I mean?
It's not a heavy analogy.
Make sense?
No, yeah. No, I'm just I'm trying to choose my words carefully here is all. So no, but otherwise.
I'm trying to also. I don't want to. I definitely didn't want to make this political, but I am gonna say whatever, bro. It's a classic analogy, but you know what, like I try not to get into political. I do support martial arts and physical activity. Mm-hmm. In schools and definitely in law enforcement. I mean, I don't want it to be an odd day when somebody turns around and you hold on to somebody's wrist and they start fighting back and you're like, oh my God, I got to tase this guy or I got to kick him down. You know what I mean? Oh, there's a time for it. There's definitely a time for it. You see it all the time. You know what I mean? But at the same time, guys, you know what I mean?
That shouldn't be the first. The training should make that so that's not first resort. That's the last resort.
Yeah.
And it seems to be absolutely more and more that is.
and continual training, right? Continual training. I'll be the first person to tell you the skills are perishable. And if you don't work on them, if you don't polish them, they'll rot on you. All right. So if you turn around and the last time you did DT was when you were going through school, guess what, man? It's not going to be there when you need it. It's like every year they tell you got to train. You got to train on you got to work your skills. You got to train your shit. Because if you don't, you're going to lose them. You're going to lose them all. And they're going to become stale. You're going to become stale and old. And even if you remember some of that old stuff, it's still going to be stale and old.
Exactly. Motorcycle. This guy's no. There's definitely this truth to that statement. You do get rusty, and it takes constant refinement and sharpening of the skills and drilling. Just make sure that happens.
And it's not just a little bit. You don't just get a little bit rusty, and it's like jumping back on a bike. You get rusty, and the rust builds up more and more and more, and pretty soon there's no knife under there that needs to be sharpened. It's just a bunch of old, dusty rust.
Look, I got 1 minute left here. There's two things. The first thing is I do mean it. At one point when this all blows over, I do want to bring my kit over. I want to do a whole episode on BeGrapple with you.
100%. You're more than welcome. We'd love to have you up there.
Dude, season 2, man, Richard Milk and Nick. Oh, that's unreal. The second thing, I gotta figure this out right now. I heard the rumor and it blew me away if it was true or not.
Look at all these people giving shout outs to Scarborough. Yeah, Hoods, man, let's go.
We got 30 seconds. Yo, last time you were on, you showed up on one of the episodes of the Coffee with Costa, someone asked, BJ Penn sought you out for instruction while you were in Ontario when he came here. Is this true or is this not true? I need to know.
Yes, he did, because he wanted to go party one night. That's what it was all about. It was nothing about like, I would have loved to have trained with him. And to go on the record, dude, back then he would have ran me over, and probably the same thing today. So don't get it twisted.